Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. This is going to be a very fun discussion, a lively discussion. Obviously, we have an amazing panel here to celebrate Lilly Ledbetter. Patricia Clarkson needs no introduction. Award-winning actress joins us, and she starred as Lilly Ledbetter in the film Lilly that just came out in May. It's very exciting. And John Goldfarb. Now, he is the attorney, Lilly Ledbetter's attorney, who followed her through her legal journey. They're also best friends, I think, too. You had quite an amazing relationship, so we'll dive into that as well. I'm Suzanne Malveaux, and I had the honor to cover Lilly Ledbetter during her legal journey from my perch at the White House. I was there under the Bush and the Obama administration. So we all overlap in amazing ways to tell this story. I want to start off by first showing a little clip from that time, from the coverage of the time when she was really on fire.
And we are now learning more about the lineup of female speakers at the Democratic National Convention. This list includes Eva Longoria. She is a co-chair of the Obama campaign. Also, speakers including Sandra Fluke. She is the law student targeted by Rush Limbaugh, you might recall, after she spoke out for contraceptive coverage. Also, Caroline Kennedy, Cecil Richards, the president of Planned Parenthood Action Fund, and Lilly Ledbetter. She's the plaintiff in a pay discrimination case that led to a new federal law.
In the end, I didn't get a dime of money. I was shortchanged, but this fight became bigger than Lilly Ledbetter. Today, it's about my daughter. It's about my granddaughter. It's about women and men. It's about families. It's about equality. It's about equality and justice. This cause, which bears my name, is bigger than me. It's as big as all of you. Which began as my own is now our fight.
Absolutely.
We're back with our
incredible.
political panel talking about the challenges ahead for the president's second term. Democratic strategist Maria Cardona.
I think we're good. Me back in the day. Okay. This is about Lilly Ledbetter. So she had a memoir that she wrote, Grace and Grit, and then it was 10 years ago, 2014 actually, that the screenplay, that process began. It took 10 years to make the film, which was quite incredible, and she had the opportunity, I guess the world premiere was last October, and then it's distributed in May here, and she had an opportunity to, I believe, screen the film before she passed away at 80.
She saw it. Yes.
She saw it, yes.
She saw it in several versions.
That's right. And let's play a little clip for our audience just to give you a sense of the movie itself and the extraordinary work that Patricia's done as well.
Sometimes in life you hit a turning point.
Lily! You gotta be more careful, girl.
And that was it for me.
How long have you worked there?
Just shy of 20 years.
I don't understand why you stayed.
At first, it was just shenanigans. I've got it. Schoolboy nonsense, really.
If you can find me some evidence, I need substantiation to build you a case. Well, here we go.
You sure you're up for this?
What time you want to leave?
Now, your income, if you include overtime, it is half of what the men are making.
She was bossy, thought she was better than everybody else.
John wants me to smile more.
Don't you dare smile.
These are powerful groups. We knew that it could go either way.
You think they should get away with how they treated me?
No. The partners and I would like to take this to the Supreme Court.
That company took advantage of me, like so many companies are taking advantage of their workers.
If she wins, women all over the country are going to use this as an excuse to sue.
I'm so damn proud of you, babe.
Miss Ledbetter was consigned to a career as a second-class employee only because she is a woman. That cannot be the law, and it isn't.
You knew you were being paid less than your male counterparts. You waited to retire before suing.
Do you really believe I chose to work 20 years knowing I was being cheated and discriminated against just so I could wait to sue? Does that make any sense?
You're not one of them, and you never will be. You're a country girl who grew up swimming in Doc Brewster's pond.
That's right. So I know how to burn off a leech.
Whoa, woo! There are some great lines in there. Patricia, I want to start off with you. I mean, you've played extraordinary women in the past, and you're very, very selective about the roles you played, and you were offered this one. Please tell me, what was behind your thinking about playing Lilly Ledbetter, and what you thought about just stepping into such a grand character of a woman?
Well, it was, it's funny watching. I'm still very emotionally attached to her, as you, of course, are too. No, look, I'm the baby of 5 daughters. My mother, who ran the city of New Orleans, my mother was a powerhouse. She raised 5 working daughters. So you can imagine how large Lilly stood in my house. And I remember when I got the call, I was shooting in London, and my agent called me, and he said, you've been offered Lilly Ledbetter. And he said, do you know who she is? And I said, Chris, I said, this is going to be a very quick yes. And it was. And so it really was the privilege of my life, of my career, of my being, to step into these very big shoes. But in order for me to do that, I had to take her off the pedestal. I had to see her eye to eye. As actors, we imprint very easily, and I felt I owed her the best of me, and I felt I owed her everything, and that I didn't want to play her and portray her. I had to take her through 3 decades. I wanted to be flesh and blood, and I had to really just dive deep and call upon the greatest parts of me. And it was a beautiful journey. It was very difficult to get this movie up and going. It's shocking how little...
Why was that, by the way?
Well, how little people care about a middle-aged woman. The story of a brilliant, extraordinary, phenomenal woman. It's just difficult. It was difficult. But you know how this movie got made? Was women. Women writing checks. So many women came to the forefront. So many women stood up. They wrote checks for $5,000, $200, $2 million. A few people wrote $2 million. And we finally were able to start shooting. Then we had issues. We had to shut down. We started again. It was quite a fight to get this movie up. But then we had it made. We got
the magic happened. I'm so glad. John, you had the extraordinary privilege, I think, of just going through that journey with her. Can you tell me how you first met her, what your impression was about her, and for someone who's very personally attached?
Yes. First of all, I can't believe I'm up here on this stage. It's such an amazing thing. I'm this civil rights lawyer. I'm allowed to say that here, right? From Birmingham,
yes, you are.
But she came, I first met her because I was a low-level associate. I had just started practicing not too long before this, and came into my office, which I think used to be a copy center, and the copy room in the firm, so it was a mid-office. And she came in and said, Mr. Goldfarb, and she called me Mr. Goldfarb the entire time we were together. So I called her Miss Ledbetter. And she said, Mr. Goldfarb, I've got this case. I just got out of the EOC. I got a notice of right to sue, which is the first thing you have to have. And she said, I can't get a lawyer to take this case. And I sat down with her, and her husband got the whole story. And I said, yes, I'll take the case, and got the firm to agree to take the case. And then the most extraordinary thing about my relationship with Lilly is after we finished the case, my clients, see you later, that's it, great. I stayed friends with her for the rest of her life. I stayed in touch with her, and every single thing that she did going forward, for going up to Washington, going to the Supreme Court, I went with her. And then every book deal, she wanted me to review everything, because Lilly didn't trust anybody because of what had happened to her whole life. So she used So she trusted me for some reason in everything, from the script to who was going to play her, whether she had to give an okay, and I said absolutely. But she and I became really best friends.
What was she
said that
What was
to me.
she like? What was she like? I mean, you told me, I think, before that.
Lily was tough and just had a lot of grit, like the book was called. And I never saw her show any true emotion. It was the only difference. And I'm glad you did in the film, because I knew it was in there somewhere. But I guess in this trial we did, where she got $3.8 million, usually you get that kind of number because you get what's called compensatory damages for pain and suffering. The jury only gave her $4,000 out of that whole amount for the pain and suffering because she couldn't show emotion. And I kept saying, Lily, you got to show something. But she couldn't do that. But and that just, I think it is a product of her upbringing. She had a rough childhood. She had a rough time in the plant. She went through extreme sexual harassment, and the men just treated her horrible. And she built this wall around her, and she never let it down.
Well, that's the thing about this film is, of course, it's about equal pay, the overriding theme. But this film also really takes on ageism, sexism, misogyny, and also about a woman really at 40 stepping in to the limelight, like my mother did.
Please tell us about your mother, because she was a powerhouse in New Orleans, and you're from New Orleans. What part?
Born and raised.
What part?
I grew up in Algiers, the suburbs across the Mississippi
My family's
River
in the 7th
Bridge.
Ward. We're related to the Pope. But that's another story, okay? The Pope has New Orleans roots. We might be related. You might be related to
Trust
the Pope,
me,
I'm just saying.
New Orleanians are already dying.
We're all related. But please tell me about your mother.
My mother, like Lily, went to work. She raised us, but we were really struggling, and she went to work selling real estate. But my mother, truly, the adage, all politics are local, my mother really is emblematic of that. She wanted to always be a local politician, but she started out in the state legislature, got some amazing bills passed when she was a state legislator. And then she became, then she ran for District C, which is the French Quarter, and Algiers, her two favorite places. And then she became president of the city council under the great mayor, Mitch Landrieu, who I just saw the other night, and had to rebuild that whole city after Katrina. My mother never left the city. She was the only public official, other than the police chief, who never left the city.
And you drew upon her in this character.
A lot. My mother is in this film. And my mother passed, sadly, and never got to see the film.
Oh,
I was in London doing a little play called Long Day's Journey into Night. And yes, anyway, I was surviving Mary Tyrone. But my mother passed, but she's in it. She's a part of it. Because when you have, a remarkable mother who loves you unconditionally, she was tough. It's inside of you for your life, and
she didn't see it, but I'm sure she was very proud.
She's
here.
She's here. She's with it somewhere.
John, explain to us. I mean, this is a very different time that we're in, and when you and I spoke before, you said what happened, the legal process, right? That Lilly Ledbetter went, and you navigated that journey, could not happen today, either through the Supreme Court or even in Congress, because of the way things are. Can you kind of explain what is the difference here? What are we dealing with when people say, hey, you know what, I'm not being treated fairly, I'm being discriminated against, I'm LGBTQ, or I'm a woman, or I'm African American, I'm disabled?
Yeah, times are definitely different. At that time, first of all, I think I'd have to say, if Justice O'Connor remained on the Supreme Court at that time, we would not be here. I would not be here. I think at that particular time, it was fairly balanced, and if Justice O'Connor was there, but she left, Alito took over, and there we went. So, but as far as the difference, I think at that point in time, people could, like Lilly Ledbetter, had the opportunity to stand up and get somewhere. Now I think you're just going to get crushed down unless you are somebody super specially like Lilly Ledbetter. It's much more difficult to get through the court system even. I think, unfortunately, with the bench that I've got in Alabama now compared to the bench I had then, I would have not made it to what's called to jury trial. It would have been thrown out at summary judgment. And in fact, it initially was thrown out at summary judgment, and U.W. Clement, probably one of the greatest justices in Alabama, allowed this case to go to the jury and allowed me to have a fair trial. And I'm having a heck of a time getting fair trials today, and I try a lot of cases, and times are rough now.
And Justice Ginsburg played a very special role in the case. So would we have somebody like her, do you think, in the Supreme Court that would point the finger at Congress and say, go fix this?
I hope so, but she was a one and only, and so she inspired, when she said that, basically go to Congress and fix this, Ms. Ledbetter said to me, well, can we do that? And I said, well, I don't, your case is over. But she said, well, it can't be over. We got to go to Congress. And I said, well, and so what happened is Norman Lear, All in the Family Guy, called Lilly at her house. Lilly. And said, and so Lilly immediately calls me and says, "There's this Norman Lear guy that just called me, and he wants to come to my house and shoot some videos." And I said, "Well, I don't think he's going to take anything, Lilly. Let him come to your house and shoot some videos." And that's what initially started everything. When the Women's Law Center saw this, and she did such a fantastic job, they say we can run with that lady.
And we did a beautiful screening in Washington with all of the DC, and I had so many tears, so many women crying on my shoulder after the screening. It was such a beautiful moment in my life and in kind of the journey of this movie. It's been many. We've taken it across this country because that's who Lilly stood up for, everybody across this great country.
This is not foreign to you. I mean, you played, and she said, you've spoken out about your own experience with Harvey Weinstein. I mean, Hollywood, right? And what she was dealing with at Goodyear, a multi-billion-dollar corporate, machine, if you will. Yes. You were one of those people. I mean, you had a fight yourself.
I had a big fight with Harvey, yeah. It wasn't sexual harassment with him. It was intimidation. Because I had 2 films at the time, and I was a supporting actress in one, and I was the leading actress in his film, and station agent. I'm the leading friggin' actress. And I'm not going to go in supporting and do the false categories that he likes to put people in. And I was supporting in Pieces of April. And the harassment I suffered from that man, threatening me, I had to hire security when I was in this certain hotel, when all of this was happening. But I speak out about it now, but I wanted to keep it quiet because I felt that the sexual harassment and the sexual violations that so many women suffered, mine felt minor, but look, he said I would never work again in this industry, that his goal would be to end my career. And he's in Rikers, and I'm here. Suck it.
There you go. Well, you heard that. I assume, obviously, that there's still many problems in Hollywood in dealing with female actors. And John, the movie...
Things have changed.
Things have changed. Okay, and that's good. There's some progress there. John, what are the things in the movie? I mean, we've watched the movie, and just thank you so much, Patricia, for this amazing portrayal. What are some of the things that the movie doesn't actually cover that you think we need to know and appreciate about Lilly?
Well, when Lilly started initially working there, one of the first things, one of the men that, she's an area supervisor. She had been a supervisor at H&R Block. She'd been a supervisor at the school at Jacksonville State. So she was highly qualified. She scored second out of 80 men on the test they had to take. So she's super prepared. So she goes in there, and one of the first things one of the men she's supposed to supervise her says to her, excuse me, but he says to her, I have a bitch at home. I'm not going to be listening to a bitch here. And that's what she had to deal with her entire time there. And then the sexual harassment, I'm talking about real groping, grabbing. A lot of that's it was directly at Lilly. And she ended up filing an EOC charge on that. And after that initial EOC charge, they started retaliating against it. So from the 80s on, she's fighting them, and they keep retaliating. And so she, like you, shuts down, doesn't say anything, deals with the sexual harassment because she had a family to support, and that's going on. The other thing that's not captured in the movie because of these lawyers called script doctors that take stuff out all the time because they're worried about getting sued. Her son, Philip, got into some trouble, and including taking her there was Philip, and her husband had a similar name, so Philip assumed his identity, ran up their credit, and all that's going on while Lilly Ledbetter is trying to push this bill through Congress. And well, I guess I can say this, I represented a police chief in Jacksonville. He told me that one night he had gone to Miss Ledbetter's house during the time that she was in D.C., that whole period, but Miss Ledbetter was at home. Her son, Philip, was in the yard with a gun, and he was going to use the gun either on himself or the police, and it's raining that night, and he shows up, gets his, in Alabama, you got a gun, you're going to get shot. So the chief of police got them to put the gun down and took him to jail. She's dealing with all this stuff while she's trying to bring this stuff to the Supreme Court. And then you did the scene with her husband coming home, finding him on the floor is a true scene. She called me right afterwards and told me about
when he
that.
passed away.
Right. So
she returned home and found him.
Right. She gets home, finds him on the floor because he'd been there for a couple of days, but she continued, even with that, to keep pushing because she had this mission to push forward with her, really a newfound identity.
But he really was the wind beneath her wings. Her husband.
Absolutely.
He was there was a real love story, and that's in the film, and that's beautiful. And he really buoyed her, and I witnessed this with my mother, my father. My mother, working 7 days a week. My father was the wind beneath his wings, her wings. And when my mother finally retired from politics, he said, "Oh my God, there's something called dinner." But he really kept her going.
He was there.
He loved and believed in her. And that's a beautiful part of the movie, that you get to see this beautiful love story. And John Benjamin Hickey plays him, and he's fantastic.
He was there every single day of the jury trial.
Every day.
Well, the husband. Yeah.
Charles.
You mentioned before, John, that, it was hard to understand how the scoring worked and the discrimination, but it was very strategic, right? When she got those audit scores that were different than the men and how they used that against her. Can you kind of describe how that actually played out in her life?
Yeah. So what happens when you get hired as an area manager, everybody makes the exact same pay. So Lily's, there's a person called an auditor who rates your job performance. And he said to Lilly, if you go to the Ramada Inn with me, I'll give you a better score. Because there's only one pot of money, and they have to divide it up among the men and Lilly. So she says, I'm not going to do that. So each time she got a lower score because she wouldn't engage in sex with the auditor. And that audit score went directly to her, to what they used to give her her pay raises, and that caused her to get a lower pay.
So that was the detail. And then the journey, right, to get to the Supreme Court, I mean, ultimately, the law changed. The law changed. They changed the law on a technicality, and it essentially was you have more time to bring a discrimination complaint. Is that correct? Am I understanding what was the outcome of her fight?
Well, I think the Supreme Court was wrong because there was a law in place came out of a decision called Bazemore, and it said each paycheck is a new violation. Supreme Court would not buy that argument. And I did not. It says John took a case to the Supreme Court. I did not. I did help write the brief, get it up there. But Kevin Russell is the person who argued the case before the Supreme Court because I would probably be a disaster. So but the law was that each paycheck that we came out with that Congress said is every time you get a new paycheck, it is a reoccurring, it's bringing the sex discrimination back because the sex discrimination that happened 20 years ago is causing each paycheck to be lower. And that is what the Congress said, and that's what the Supreme Court ignored. But I still think the Supreme Court was wrong. There was already a law in place that said that.
We're dealing with a different Supreme Court and a different time. What's the strategy here, right? What's the winning strategy? I mean, she spent a good 10 years to get to where she needed to be. Do we have those laws, those strong, strict laws in place? It seems like Congress is just immobile.
Well, the Lilly Ledbetter Fair Pay Act is in place, and we use it all the time. Interesting, the way that, if you're interested in how, somebody calls me from Senator Mitchell's office and said, we're wondering if it'd be okay to call this law the Lilly Ledbetter Fair Pay Act. So I said, well, I'm sure it's okay. So I called Ms. Ledbetter, and I said, Ms. Ledbetter, they want to do that? And she said, well, that would be fine. And so, but as far as can we, I am afraid to take a case to the Supreme Court. We, lawyers like me, have to be very careful about what we appeal to the 11th Circuit, what we appeal to the Supreme Court. And by appealing her case to the Supreme Court, I ended up making really bad law. And so it's another thing that motivated me to stick with Ms. Ledbetter, because maybe we could fix this, and we were able, because of her, to fix it through Congress.
What was one of the most difficult aspects of playing Lilly Ledbetter in the film?
Well, it was rough because, we had very little time, very little money. And I had to travel through these 3 decades, and I wanted to really try to differentiate and give, breath to each kind of moment in her life, physically, emotionally. But about a month into shooting, we weren't shooting in sequence, so there were days when I was 50 different ages. And about a month into shooting, one morning, I'm just shattered. And it's 7 o'clock, and I'm already in hair and makeup. And I walk onto the set to my beautiful director. Let's say she's there. I'm literally walking like this. And I'm like, Rachel, how old am I? How old am I in this goddamn scene? How old am I? And she looks at me and she goes, Patty, you're 40.
Oh, oops. I love it.
So tough, but it was, it was a glorious experience, but exhausting.
Oh my God, that's so funny. That's so great. I want to open it up to the audience if you guys have any questions, because obviously they have amazing stories. And John, it's so amazing because you and I were in a couple places at the same time when the act was being signed the first week. President Obama in his first week, and I was on the lawn of the White House covering it. You were there for the signing. We were both there at the convention. I mean, we really shared an amazing journey, really.
Yeah, that's probably the funniest story of this with me is I was in another jury trial in a place called Anniston, Alabama, which is a rough area for somebody to be trying a race case. And so Melina, my wife, calls me at a break and says, Artur Davis, who was our representative, called and says, you need to go to the White House. And I said, what are you talking about? And I said, I'm in the middle of a jury trial. And he said, well, you got to get up there by such and such a time. And I said, well, I don't know. So finished closing, jury's out, and the rule is you got to be there in that courtroom during the time the jury's out. And I said, well, Your Honor, I got to go somewhere. And he says, what are you talking about? And I said, well, I got to go see the president. And he said, what? And I said, I'm serious. And Artur Davis called, and I went through this whole spiel, and I had to be there the next morning at 9 o'clock. And it's already 4:30. And so my wife, Melina, had bought me a ticket for 7:30 out of Atlanta. I had the suit I was in, and that was it. So I ran over to a store called JCPenney, because that's about the best store they had in Anniston, Alabama. Bought some, a shirt and some socks, underwear, and raced over to Atlanta, got on the plane. Next morning, met the President of the United States wearing what I'd been wearing for 2 days in trial. And and he said to me, Joe Biden said, because they were going to go in the back and take pictures, and I was just standing there with the Ledbetter family, and they said, we need to bring him out back in the back too, because the only thing he's getting out of this is a picture.
You were not dressed to code. I don't know, up for the moment. Does anybody have a question? I think we have some mics as well. We do have a mic. Great. If we can go to this table over here, I think. Wonderful.
Thank you. What were the main reasons Lilly was successful in getting the act passed? Was there like a movement supporting at the time, or was it because there was already a face to the name because of the Supreme Court case? What do you think were the main reasons, and can any of those lessons be applied today, or is it just totally a different time?
Great question. Lilly Ledbetter was a force of nature, and one of the things that it's so interesting about her is when I first met her, she had gray hair on the top of her head, and then she got this new purpose in life because usually you lose a case like that, it destroys you. And she got this new purpose in life, which you played so well, and she decided that she was going to be the force behind this on her own, really, and then teamed up with the National Women's Law Center, they were a fantastic group at that time. They pushed this forward. Lilly she just fell into this role. You saw that scene where she was
and Hillary Clinton
was
a very big force behind this.
Hillary, both Obama and Hillary calls Lilly and asks if they can. They actually called me, and Lilly calls and says, which one should I go with? And I'm the one that said, you straddle them both. And that's what she did. But we had all those factors together with her pushing it, and I think there's always going to be somebody out there like Lilly Ledbetter, like the National Women's Law Center, that will allow us to be able to get things through.
Hillary Clinton introduced, when we did a premiere in New York, she introduced the film, and it was a beautiful moment, very amazing moment. Yeah.
The gentleman in the middle there. We pass the mic there. Thank you.
I thought one of your really great films was A Station Agent. Thoroughly enjoyed it. And that was Peter Dinklage's first film. And during that time, and I think that was during the time when you were being harassed by Harvey Weinstein, am I correct? Did you see him, was he, because of his physical condition, was he an ally to you? Was he helpful to you? Or did that occasion arise at all?
You mean Pete?
Yeah,
Peter being an ally?
Yeah.
Well, he wasn't aware of a lot of it.
Okay.
And Pete was always amazing. I mean, I had a wonderful time with him, and we're still great friends. And Bobby Cannavale, also of the film. They were kind of kept out of it, but then once they realized what was happening, yes, they stood up for me. Yes.
Yes, in the front there. Thank you.
I didn't understand your comment about it was a bad law. The Supreme Court or something?
Yes.
Why?
The Ledbetter opinion that came out originally, that Ruth Bader Ginsburg wrote the dissent, that was the bad opinion that came out from the Supreme Court, because that said, if you don't bring a claim of discrimination within 180 days of the original act of discrimination, which Lilly didn't realize happened 20 years ago when they started lowering her pay because she didn't know what her pay was compared to anybody else. That was what that opinion said. It said, and so there was no way for Lilly to timely bring a claim for many factors. One, she didn't know, and if it's only a few dollars, you're not going to bring a claim at that point in time. It's got to raise up until it's severe, and at one point, Lilly was making $25,000 less. She's making $44,000, and they're making close to $60,000. So there, a lot of those factors, anyway, the Supreme Court opinion was a very bad law. That's why Ruth Bader Ginsburg stood up and said, you got to fix this fast.
Yes, in the middle, right in the middle, the woman in the middle, please. Thank you.
Patricia, could you tell me or us a little bit about what your hopes are for the film? Why you worked so hard to honor Lilly in the film and to be part of something that was so hard to make. You worked so hard to get the funding for it. What are your hopes for the film? And then do you have any advice for others who want to make similar kinds of film, engaging people around really important issues, using storytelling to engage people in these issues? Thanks.
What was your first question? Sorry. I had a lot of rosé yesterday. What? Well, our hopes is that as many people as possible see it. I mean, I've done a lot of press for this film, nonstop, really, since the Hampton Film Festival, which was October. Mm-hmm. And, but it was also beautiful because everybody from Kelly Clarkson to CBS Sunday Morning wanted to interview me and talk about Lilly and this film. Everyone knew the importance of it. And what I'm hoping is that it's shocking how few people know about Lilly Ledbetter, her real story and what she really accomplished and what she went through and how many doors she had to knock on in Congress. I'm shocked that there's still doors in Congress because they've been knocked on so much. And so I'm hoping that this film, we're looking right now for a streamer. We had a very small company called Blue Harbor distribute the film. We played in a lot of art houses across the country, but we're in the process right now of securing a streamer, and then hopefully we'll take it even much wider. That's my hope, is that it reaches as many people in this country as possible, and even maybe we've made some deals in Spain and France and Poland, and I want people to know, and especially a lot of young people, young women who have come to see the film and I've spoken to after, and they just say, how did I not know about this woman? I said, well, now you do. And this is why we make these films. And they are hard to get made. But I'm telling you, when women started writing checks, that's how this film got made. We did not have Netflix. We did not have Apple. We did not have mega millionaires, mega billionaires funding this film. This was funded by women. It was a beautiful moment in our industry and in movie making in general. And so I'm forever indebted to the women who wrote these checks, forever and ever. Yeah.
More questions in the front here? And then I'll get to you next.
Thank you very much. Lovely presentation. Ruth Bader Ginsburg has a framed copy of the bill in her chambers, or she did. My question, and we can't go back in time, but why do you think Ruth didn't step down from being on the Supreme Court before she died?
Wow. I disagreed with that thing from the Supreme Court as well. So the question was, why did she step down from the Supreme Court before? Why didn't she step down? Yeah, because she wanted to hold on as long as she could, and hopefully make it to the new administration, which she optimistically hoped would be the time for her to step down, and so she held on. I guess I don't, had she stepped down there, everybody thinks she should have, and let somebody, and appointed somebody else. I think she knew that they would hang it up and nobody would come in. So I think she said, and because we saw that happen, so I think she said, well, I'm just going to hold on, get the new administration in, and there's no way they'll be able to not confirm me, because I think she knew it wouldn't go through.
Yeah.
That's my opinion. I'm no expert, though.
The woman in the back there. Thank you. Yes, yes.
Hi, Mr. Wolfarb, you made a joke at the beginning saying you're a civil rights lawyer and you don't know if you can still say that. I am also a civil rights lawyer. Not only can we still say it, we should still say it.
Excellent.
I wanted to thank you for your leadership. I had the privilege of working for Senator Leahy when he was chair of the Senate Judiciary Committee, and he was one of the original co-sponsors of what became the Lilly Ledbetter Fair Pay Act. And working in his office, I will tell you, it remains one of the major accomplishments of his entire 37-year career in the Senate, a point of pride. And the moment, I want the audience just to understand a couple things. It doesn't happen for laws to pass as smoothly as it did. And the notion that you could have a bad Supreme Court decision taking a cruelly narrow interpretation of a law that actually makes things fundamentally unfair for workers across the country, and that the democracy can push back, that can go to Congress and the People's House can overturn that decision and have that become the new law of the land. That is such a beautiful story. It is the exact type of story we need in this moment. So to you, Patricia, for carrying that story forward, thank you. But I just wanted to say, as someone who's been in the work, who continues the work, capturing this, remembering the feeling of that victory and that win, and carrying that forward so a new generation can hear it, get familiar with it, and hopefully continue to make similar progress in future is really beautiful. So thank you.
Thank you.
And I'll say what I know here, I can say I'm a civil rights lawyer. Not where I live, but I do it all the time, and I don't have a lot of friends.
Any other questions? Anybody else? Yes, go ahead. We've got two in the front there.
Mine's a quick one. Who wrote the screenplay? The director, Rachel Feldman.
And you had a question?
Yeah, thank you for fighting for Lilly, and thank you for beautifully sharing her story. My question from an employer perspective, as a civil rights attorney, what's top of mind for you right now in terms of what companies should be doing a better job of? Like, what are the one or two things that you think are top of your mind that we can be doing a better job of so that we don't have more Lilly-type situations?
Great question. And so Lilly had complained to a guy named Jerry Jones, who was a human resources manager, and he didn't do anything because I do a ton of these cases, and the problem with human resources departments at most companies, they're there to protect the company, not help the employee. So the companies need to get their human resources department to realize you really need to be protecting the employees, and if you do that, you'll stop a lawsuit. I think that's the most important thing companies can do.
We got one more. Or two more?
Okay, real quickly. Patty, you minimized your treatment and your harassment that you were going through for the sake of others, but you were strong and you stood your ground. So what gave you that strength? And what's your advice to other young women who may be minimizing something that they shouldn't be?
Well, it was such a complicated time in Hollywood, and remember at the time, I didn't really, the Harvey Weinstein, the abuse and the trauma he had caused had not come to light. But I still felt, I was raised, by my mother. I was raised by Jackie Clarkson. And I wasn't fearful. I was never a fearful person. And so I knew I was right. And that's what kept me. And I had an extraordinary man in my life. We were not lovers. What a shame. Named Bingham Ray. He ran October Films, which we desperately need in Hollywood now. But he ran, and he believed in me. And I had family and friends who believed in me, and an agent and a manager. You know, I had people surrounding me. I had this network of people who, and I was dating a man at the time who was like, just give me 5 minutes in the room with Harvey. Just let him into your room, and he said, I'll beat the shit out of him in 2 seconds. But anyway, and that's what I kind of kept in the back of my head. Somebody will hit him for me. And but I think, but I do think we all need to speak up at all times, no matter what size the infraction is. Large or small, because they do, it's an injustice and it's wrong. And I hope as women, but I think we are getting better at speaking up. I do believe that. And I know in Hollywood, everyone's Me Too'd now. I mean, everyone. Look at all the people who have gone down in Hollywood. It's on the front page of Hollywood Reporter every week. Someone's Me Too'd. And, everybody better behave.
It's as good as become a verb. Me Too'd. Me Too'd. Was there any other questions? You had one, and if there's anybody else that I can...
No, I was just curious, John. I've always had the idea or impression that verdicts of yours and Lily's are pretty rare, actually. That they don't happen maybe often enough, that the discrimination issue goes to a jury trial. Well, of course, if it goes to Supreme Court, completely rare, but how about jury trials themselves? Are people getting justice as often as they should through jury trials that way?
That's a good question. So generally what happens is the courts want to throw these cases out on summary judgment. So lawyers like me spend most of our careers writing briefs, trying to get the judge to agree they can go to the jury. I love trying cases. Most defense lawyers don't like trying cases, so the case will settle once we get around summary judgment. But when we get to go to a jury, my opinion is the jury is the smartest person in the room. They can see something is wrong, and they're going to do the right thing. And in Lily's case, at that time, that was the largest verdict for a sex discrimination case in the country ever. And she had it all taken away, but they were so mad about what they had seen happen that they, socked it to them. And I had spoken to the juror. We get to talk to the jurors in Alabama afterwards, and I said, well, how did you come up with that number? And the foreman said, well, we wanted to give Goodyear a little sting, like a bee sting. Not too much, and they did it.
I'd like to wrap it up by asking both of you, what do you think Lilly would think of this moment? And what do you think that she actually can appreciate just how significant she was in terms of her legacy? John, I'll start with you.
She figured it out when she went to Congress and people started listening to her. And I still think she had such humility, and she was such a humble person. She never realized what she was doing was going to infect so many people. She knew at that point that she was never going to get any money, and she still did it just for the sake of making a difference for everybody else, because the law was not retroactive. Lilly didn't get anything, and to know that people are still talking about what she did, she would be humble and very proud.
Thank you.
I think she'd be thrilled. I think she rose through the ranks. She transformed for the greater good. She was this humble woman, but she rose for the greater good, and she fought for everyone across this great nation, and I think she'd be thrilled. I think people would be swarming around her and after all these screenings. They swarm me, and I'm like, I just play her. And I'm so thankful to her every single day. I'm very thankful to her.
I think one of the wonderful things about this film, too, is that it takes us back to that time in making her case, but it also reminds us of what we have to fight for and how to fight for it. Perhaps it's a different method and way of doing it, but that one person can make a difference, and I just think that's such a powerful message. So thank you, both of you, and thank you all for joining us. I really appreciate it.